Most of the rapid changes in volume I experience are when I walk in on my brother watching Teen Mom. After that, it's when I use a tremolo pedal. So we're going to talk about what a tremolo pedal is. We're going to use the awesome Keeley Dynatrem as an example. First, we're just going to go through the basic parameters of what a tremolo pedal does, and then we're going to talk about what makes this specific pedal special. But first of all, the clean tone sounds like this. And then as soon as we engage the pedal, okay, so what it does is it alters the volume of your signal, and it can do this very slowly, very quickly, very deeply, or very shallowly. So first of all, let's talk about the main control knobs that any kind of tremolo will have. Usually there's going to be a depth and there's going to be a rate. So the depth knob, which here is this one right there. Now if we just take the depth all the way down, we try to listen to it, don't really hear a lot of anything because there's really no fluctuation. Now as we start to engage it, you start hearing that kind of warbly sound. That's how far the volume is changing it. Now if we go all the way up, it's like a stutter type sound. And that stuttering comes from, a signal being there and being gone, being there and being gone really quickly. So we're just going to leave the depth kind of at 12 o'clock. And then that brings us to the rate, and that's how quickly the volume is changing. So a really slow rate, let's turn the rate like all the way down. You can hear that that's really just almost like a really slow, methodical volume swell that you can maybe get with like your volume. Now, as you increase it, it gets a little more recognizable. It's kind of like a medium rate. And then you can make it super, super fast. Okay, so it's really kind of like a combination of trying to find like the perfect blend between that. So we're just going to kind of set them both at noon right there. And the cool thing about that is like, as you kind of sustain a chord, that effect becomes more noticeable. So if you're kind of doing a thing where maybe you're playing like a chord, maybe like in between, you might not hear as much of the effect because it's pretty quick, especially if you're like doing kind of like single like maybe like lead kind of double stops. It's kind of like barely there. It's really affecting the signal in a cool way, but it's not until you really kind of pause on a chord or something that you really get that effect going, okay? So it's really just kind of like a cool thing that adds a little bit of action to your playing, especially if you're doing some kind of sustained chord type deal, right? Now, the cool thing about this pedal, and that's why it's called a Dynatrem, is because it responds dynamically to your playing, okay? So, for instance, right now, if you keep this knob all the way off right here, it just acts as a regular tremolo pedal, which I think is kind of like a good way to demo it, is just a pure tremolo example. Now, as you kind of bring this up, you'll notice that there are different types of speeds happening, okay? So when this is engaged in dynamic rate mode, the cool thing about this is the rate will change depending on how you play, okay? So if I really hit something kind of hard, you can hear as the signal is decaying, the rate of it is actually slowing down. So if I'm hitting something kind of full on, the rate is pretty quick. But then as I let it off, it kind of slows down a little bit, which is kind of like a cool thing to add to like maybe like the tail of like a chord if you're kind of playing like sparsely. Which otherwise, you might have to like use kind of like an external expression pedal or even like automate if you're doing a recording. So it's kind of like a well thought out feature that they kind of added to this. And there's like a bunch of different kind of like styles that you can do as far as like how you want the tremolo to sound. as far as ramping up and down, signs, stuff like that. We can get into more of that later. But basically, that's just one way that you can kind of dynamically affect it with this particular pedal. Now, the other one is going to be it's the same thing, but instead of rate, it's going to be depth, okay? So now, kind of like we talked about earlier with like the depth of it, how it affects like the depth or shallowness of the actual thing. The harder you play, the more severe that depth is going to be. So it doesn't really slow down. It's not really like a time-based effect. And again, it just kind of adds a variable action to it, is kind of like the way that I like to look at it. The other cool thing about this one specifically is you can use it as a reverb pedal. So the third one is another type of tremolo, but it also acts as a reverb. Okay, so again, there's no reverb going on in the amp. This is all dry, except for this pedal. Now the way to hear just what the reverb sounds, if you turn like the rate and the depth off, or all the way counterclockwise, now this shape knob acts as like the amount of reverb that you have. So if you turn this all the way off, it's essentially just a pretty clean signal. Okay, now once you start to bring it in, it has this really like vintage old school type reverb on it. You can really kind of go into it. You can get out of this pedal. And then if you want to start bringing in a little bit of the tremolo into the reverb, you need some kind of far out there effects. So there's really a lot that you can do with this pedal. Tremolo especially kind of adds like a cool old school vibe. Like if you're a fan of like the AC30, that has a really cool built-in tremolo that is partially, inspired by really like a lot of different tremolo pedals out there. I'm a former AC30 owner, so it's kind of cool to have a little bit of that vintage vibe that you can add to varying degrees. And the dynamic portion of the pedal is just something that's really cool that, maybe you have a specific taste for it, but they're cool enough, especially in this iteration of the pedal, to add the feature where you can actually just turn the dynamic off and just use it as like a straight up tremolo pedal. I know like the original version of this pedal didn't have that, and they offered it as a mod, stuff like that too. So definitely I will link you below if you want to check it out. And if you have any questions on tremolo or other types of effects or other stuff you might want to see, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks a lot.